Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right?
Alright, so welcome to the video. I just had a leg session. It was a pretty productive session. Managed to hit a new few PRs on my top sets. Smashed it out really. On the drive in, I was hell motivated, really excited. And then when I hopped on the treadmill in my warm up, I was like, and then managed to start my first exercise and everything started to get rolling. And everything went nice and smoothly in that sense. Pushed up quite a bit of weight compared to what I normally do, which is great as well. Like, it's still early days on this new program, so we know when you start a new program or when you start a new few exercises, you have that initial stimulus where you're going to progress like crazy. And basically I'm trying to take full advantage of that. Each session adding a few kilos or like 10 kilos, 20 kilos each session, and matching my previous session's reps, right? Which is great. When we have that initial stimulus, we want to ride that out as long as we can. Pause. But yeah, we want to make full advantage of that initial stimulus and progress as much as we can whilst we can, because we know whilst that initial stimulus fades away after a few weeks, it's going to start becoming really hard to progress. So yeah, you will see a voiceover of me showing you the highlights of the session, how I'm executing things, why I'm executing things, and just the nitty gritty behind the exercises. After this, I'm gonna go home, get ready with. Hey, welcome to the voiceover. This is the first exercise, laying hamstring curl. 3 sets, 1 set 8 to 10, 2 sets 12 to 15. Damn, I do be looking kind of thick in this position. What am I even talking about? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
That's a bet, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right? That's a deal, right?
Alright, so we're on to our second exercise now, which is just simple adductors, simply because not many people train their adductors, and if we're wanting to optimize our results, we're going to be training all the body parts we can, right? So we've got 1 set of a rest pause, which is you choose a weight you fail at 15 reps, rest for 5, fail, rest for 5, fail.
Hey, coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hate applying my elimination. Gotta go to Google for the information.
So for our third exercise here, we have hack squats. We're doing 1 set 5 to 9 and 1 set 12 to 15. Working through a variety of rep ranges here. Control the eccentrics to the best of our ability. If you got stuff on your nose and mouth, wipe it off. Anyways, the key here is to go as deep as possible without our lower back rounding. Simply because the way I train is low volume, high intensity, I need to be making sure we are taking every single set to mechanical failure. As you can see, this last repetition was an absolute grinder. However, I was able to secure the Duffy and secure the set. This absolutely taxed me.
I am shooketh.
Howdy. So what you're seeing right now is a back off set. As I stated before, my training style is high intensity, low in volume. So typically we'll do around 2 sets or 3 sets, but for this scenario it is 2 sets. Our top set will be a heavier set, aiming for a lower rep range such as 5 to 9. Our back off set is essentially when we will lighten the weight and we'll work through a lighter set through a higher rep range such as 12 to 15, like this scenario. Execution still applies throughout every single set we're doing, aiming for about 3 seconds through the eccentric and exploding through the concentric phase to the best of our ability. As you can see, when you're doing a compound exercise like this, it is pretty taxing working through the 12 to 15 rep range. However, we get it done and we do what we can to get it done. Once you are working hard, you can see we are making weird faces. I have never noticed me actually making those faces. Interesting. When you record yourself, you actually learn more about what you actually do when you don't even realize. Anyway, this taxed me.
Google for the information. I'm a superstar, so I gotta shine. Top dollar be the bottom line. Bottom feeding niggas out of line. Turn your heart rate to a dotted line. Yeah, my zodiac probably $.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So like I do all of my exercises is I work my way up to my top set, which is my heaviest set. Here for the fourth exercise, we have leg press, 3 sets, 2 sets 5 to 9, and 1 set 12 to 15. A key here with the leg press is we want to be going as deep as we can without our lower back rounding off the seat. So essentially, what I apply through all my workouts is achieving full range of motion and executing to the best of our ability and getting as strong as we can throughout these rep ranges and within this full range of motion essentially. So another thing with leg presses is we want to be controlling our eccentrics to the best of our ability, aiming for about 3 seconds on the eccentric phase. I was going to attempt another one, but then I was just like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Welcome back to ASMR with Michael Pedrick. Alright, so this set 3 on leg presses, where we're aiming for about 15 to 20 reps, is essentially just to burn out and pump as much blood to the legs as we possibly can. These sets are essentially called metabolite finishes. They are pretty taxing on our central nervous system, but at the same time, we're able to really fatigue that muscle group. As you can tell, I was knackered.
Got the energy to win it, my nigga, I'm feeling great. Got a date with destiny, focusing on my fate. I don't give a fuck what you rapping, you been a fake. I'm everything that they ain't.
It can't be, it won't be. Wanna see me fall, I can't go, I won't leave. Coming from the block with plain clothes and police. Straight up to the top with bankrolls and rollies. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel.
Our 5th exercise here is leg extensions. We're doing 2 sets here, 1 set 6 to 9 and 1 set 10 to 12. The benefits of doing leg extensions is not only it's going to isolate our quads and really pump some blood there, we're also going to be taking our knees through full knee extension and knee flexion, which is essentially going to provide us with a much larger range of motion. We won't get this range of motion through a squat or a leg press. This is the benefits of doing a leg extension.
Like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal.
Our final exercise you're going to see here is a seated hamstring curl. We're doing 1 set of a rest pause. Exact same thing applies when we're doing our adductors. So you choose a weight where you fail between 12 to 15 reps, rest for 5 seconds, fail, rest for 5 seconds, fail. The benefits of this hamstring curl is going to really challenge our hamstring in the shortened position, which is essentially when our hamstring is fully contracted, but at the same time, we need to really making sure we're getting into that shortened position and achieving full range of motion. As you can see, after this rest pause here, I'm still controlling the eccentric to the best of my ability. I'm not getting too fixated on aiming for repetitions, however, it is a guideline. We're still making sure we're having exact same tempo throughout every single set we are doing. So this is my last rest pause here. Coming down, controlling the eccentric. This is sped up a little bit. However, you can see by the end of this set, it is pretty taxing. I then finished the workout with some calf raises. So today's post-workout meal is 2 English muffins, chicken, rice, some spinach, a little bit of Nando's peri-peri sauce on top, and some Wheatie Bix, the little fruity ones with some almond milk. It's about 1400 calories. I'll eat this up and then I'm going to get started on editing this video. So this last bit of the video, I'm just going to talk about why I train the way I train. Why do I train to failure, or training to failure versus reps in reserve? So typically with my working sets, I'm doing about 2 top sets, and the reasoning behind that is I'm able to recruit as many motor units as possible, and which is essentially improves the contractile strength within the muscle. So we know that obviously all muscles have motor units in them. If we're able to train at an intensity and recruit as many motor units as possible, in hindsight, that's going to be recruiting as many muscle fibers within that muscle as possible. Now, a lot of research shows if we're able to put this on an intensity scheme and a rating, like such as RPE, scaling from 1 through to 10, if we can put this in an intensity rating, you want to be training at least at a minimum of 7 out of 10 intensity that is going to be recruiting as much motor units as possible, essentially. So when we look at training to failure versus reps in reserve, or saving a few reps and leaving a few reps in the tank, you still need to be training at least a minimum intensity of 7 out of 10. Right? No matter what exercise we're doing, no matter what stimulus we're putting our body through, we're still going to be contracting and recruiting motor units. Hence why I talk about why I'm training to failure, because I want to be in the position where I know that I'm contracting as many motor units as possible, and I'm not leaving any motor units out, and essentially making the most contractile strength within that muscle as I possibly can. And another big reason why I'm pushing towards that 10 out of 10 failure is when you work in an RPE scheme, or when you work with a guided intensity, such as today I need to be working with at least 2 reps in reserve, or whatever it may be. One, it's very difficult to program that, and 2, you change on a daily basis, right? One day you could be feeling stronger, one day you could be feeling sick, right? There's so many different factors that affect your environment and affect your performance on a daily basis. So one day you could go into, okay, I need to be training with 2 reps in reserve for this session. However, that training session could be a lot poorer than your previous session where you were feeling stronger. Therefore, it is a lot harder to determine what your intensity actually is. So essentially, if you're going to this session knowing you're committing to a 10 out of 10 intensity and pushing to that failure point, you know you're not leaving any in the tank. So therefore, you know that you're not kind of cheating yourself or leaving any behind, if that makes sense. Right? So touching on that rate of perceived exertion again, as I was saying earlier, one day it could be a 7 out of 10 on an exercise, and another day it could be a 9 out of 10 off an exercise. And we need to be trying to track these measurements and track these factors to create an optimal or somewhat optimal environment to be training in. And we also know mechanical load is probably at the forefront in regards to muscle hypertrophy. So given a variety of rep ranges, such as 5 to 9, 10 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 20, etc., and just solely working at a very high intensity within those rep ranges, and having the main focus and goal to get as strong as I can within those rep ranges, I know I'll be making the most out of my sessions and doing what I can to essentially provide a quality stimulus to my muscles. And discussing more on mechanical failure goes par to par with progressive overload as well, and pushing to that mechanical failure point. We can find our own mechanical failure through an exercise when you're failing through proper execution and proper form. If I'm being methodical about this, it's not putting me in a situation where I'm questioning myself if I'm making the most out of my sessions, because I know I am doing what I can to make the most out of my sessions. And touching on being methodical and trying to be optimal in a sense, that touches on with my execution and my performance in the weight room, such as controlling the eccentric phases and pushing through the concentric phases, right? We know the eccentric phase, which is essentially the way down on an exercise, or the easier part on an exercise, is going to be a lot more optimal in regards to actually making the microfibril tears within the muscle, which is what we want to be doing in regards to breaking down that muscle tissue, really. It is a lot less taxing on our CNS, our central nervous system, compared to the concentric phase. So the concentric phase is when a muscle is shortening, and the eccentric phase is when a muscle is lengthening. Eccentric phase is a much more optimal in regards to how taxing it is on our CNS, and compared to our concentric phase, where our concentric phase is a lot more taxing on our CNS. However, it is a lot less optimal for actually making those microfibril tears. That just makes enough sense to be spending more time in the eccentric phase than the concentric phase, which is why I usually spend around 2 to 3 seconds in the eccentric phase and then in the concentric phase, just exploding through and getting the weight up through proper execution, right? So that's why I personally train to failure. It's not a situation where training to failure is better than reps in reserve or training with reps in reserve, and more so just determines which one do you think that will be best for you and which one best suits your personality as well. Like, I like going into the weight room and training to failure. I don't like leaving a set knowing I could have gotten 3 more reps or whatever, you know? I like going to failure on as many sets as I can and pushing myself. That's just my own preference, but we also need to take in consideration into recovery on top of that as well. So if we're pushing to mechanical failure every single set, we know that's going to be very taxing on our CNS, and in hindsight, we're not going to be able to be doing 4, 5, 6 sets like you see a lot of people doing when they train reps in reserve. If you take in consideration your quality and the performance of your first few sets, you're not going to be getting the same quality and the same performance you did in last 3 sets. So say, for example, if you're doing 6 sets, the first 2 to 3 sets are probably pretty high quality, pretty good in performance. Those last 3 sets are going to drop off a lot more. And then we need to take in consideration into our recovery. How many sets are you doing on a muscle on a weekly basis? Are you recovering with that many sets? That's why it's very beneficial to get in contact with a coach so they can be monitoring your recovery on a weekly basis and monitoring your performance on a weekly basis and judging whether or not we can be adding in a few more exercises, a few more sets, or vice versa, taking out a few more exercises or taking out a few more sets, right? So that's why I train to failure. I hope you were able to gain some sort of knowledge in regards to training to failure versus training in reps in reserve. But if you decide on choosing one, you need to take in consideration the other factors that can be coming into play into that, such as recovery, mechanical load, time and attention, the tempo you're even training with, your overall sets, how many sets you're doing on a weekly basis, right? These all can come into consideration in regards to our training style, right? So yeah, I hope you're able to enjoy. All feedback is appreciated. Every single comment, every single message that I get, I always appreciate that. You know, like, obviously it is kind words, but at the same time, I'm taking in that feedback and I'm making the changes where I get that feedback. So yeah, cheers for watching. If you can, leave a comment or like, subscribe. Sounds so weird saying that. Sounds kind of corny, but hey, do it if you want to. I'm not asking, I'm just putting it out there. I'm manifesting it. So do it if you want to. Please do it. Shit. Yeah.